And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Ruben from Dubb's podcast, Connection Loop. And today I have with me Dr. Tony. We're going to talk about the platinum rule. So, Dr. Tony, if you could start with a short bio, and then let's get into the topic.
Well, a little bit about myself. Went through Notre Dame, University of Connecticut, Georgia State University to get my bachelor's, master's, and PhD, all in business, mostly in marketing. I've taught professional sales at the university level for over 8 years. Did strike out on my own in January of '79 as a full-time professional speaker. 1985, elected into the National Speakers Association Speakers Hall of Fame for probably 30 plus years. I've delivered over 100 plus paid speeches a year worldwide. Traveled so much, I have over 12 million frequent flyer miles on American. Traveled so much that I kind of burned out on travel. So in 2000, I decided to build this online assessment business, personality assessments, hiring and selection assessments. And as that business grew, Ruben, I slowly cut back in speaking. So here we are today. That assessment business has grown so rapidly, I never have to give another paid speech the rest of my life. So I can be choosy.
Very good. So let's start with this idea of the platinum rule. So we know the golden rule, which can be somewhat controversial depending on who you speak to. Talk to us about the platinum rule.
All right. Well, first, let me make sure everybody is on the same page with the golden rule. Most of us have heard the golden rule as do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I have to tell you, I believe in that rule 110% when it comes to values, ethics, honesty, consideration. There's no better rule. But when it comes to one-on-one communication, whether it is socially, whether it's personal communications, sales, the golden rule can backfire because it says that I should treat you the way I would like to be treated, which doesn't always work. And I'll tell you, Ruben, I learned that firsthand. I grew up in New York City and New Jersey all the way through college, and then eventually moved to San Diego, where I live now. And when I first moved to San Diego, I practiced the golden rule. In other words, I treated the people in San Diego as if they were New Yorkers. Do you see a potential problem here? Too strong, too aggressive, too in your face. Even when I ask people to do things that under any other circumstance they would have willingly done, they dug in their heels. And it wasn't because of what I was asking them. It was simply because of the how. So it was then that I decided, let me come up with an alternative, a corollary, so to speak, to the golden rule, which I call the platinum rule. And the platinum rule, very simply stated, is do unto others as they would have you do unto them. In other words, treat people the way they want and need to be treated.
I think this idea of tapping into empathy, tapping into self-awareness, but creating something that's beneficial for something else and someone else, I think it's extremely valuable. And it's actually a muscle that we have to develop because a lot of us are trained in the idea of the golden rule, whether it's from religious reasons or whether it's from scholastic reasons. It's almost something that I don't want to say have to unlearn, but at the same time, tapping into this idea of seeing outward is a new realm for a lot of people. And I would call that either compassion or empathy or just general self-awareness or even mindfulness.
Absolutely. And, Ruben, in today's environment, with increasing diversity, not just worldwide and not just in the United States, but even in your own city or even household, this concept of the platinum rule is absolutely crucial because the more diverse the group that we're interacting with, the more we need to be aware of the differences between me and them, and then adjusting, making sure that I get on the same wavelength, speak their language. It's not unlike that age-old saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans.
Mm-hmm. There it is. Now, in the topic of self-realization, I think it's important that we understand our behavioral style. And I understand that there's a lot of different systems so that we can understand this. There's the DISC method, and then there's a bunch of other ones. Now, could you take us through what your interpretation of self-assessment is and how we might best gain that knowledge?
Yeah. So in our model, the platinum rule, it's a classic 4-style model. There's several that have been out there, since the days of Hippocrates, BC. But the DISC model, which is arguably the most widely used 4-style model in the world, sort of divides people into 4 major categories: D-I-S-C. D standing for dominance behavior, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. Now, let me clarify, Ruben, that everybody is a mix of all 4. It's just what percentage mix it is. Some people are higher Ds, Is, S's, or Cs. And if we have a couple of minutes, let me just kind of give everybody sort of as I would say, a CNN overview of each of those 4 patterns of behavior: dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. So the Ds, their key desire is results, bottom line. Their motto, I want it done right, I want it done now, or better yet, I want it done yesterday. They're in a hurry for everything. Fast-paced, task-oriented individual. These are the kind of people, when they get together with you, they want you to get right down to business. Don't waste my time. Don't build up to why you're here. Just tell me why you're here. And if I want to know more, I'll ask the questions. And I will say of all 4 styles, the Ds, the dominant styles, are the weakest listeners. And the reason is they already know the answer, so why listen? All right. So now the Is, the high I style, the influence style, their key desire is fun, excitement, applause, visibility, recognition. And as a result, they talk a lot about their favorite subject, themselves. Generally speaking, the Is are generally speaking, because they have the gift of gab, the power of persuasion, the ability to get other people more excited about their ideas than even they are themselves. They do have a tendency, by the way, to get off the subject a lot, and also to maybe exaggerate. I've done it 1,000 times. I've done it 1,000,000 times. Things like that. So those are the Is. The S's, the steadiness styles, their key desire is for harmony, safety, security, close one-on-one relationships. These are the team players, the glue that holds a team or a relationship together. By far the best listeners. They're very empathic. Problem area is their feelings get hurt very easily, but they don't always show it. They kind of hold it in and eventually may explode when a little thing happens, but because it's a little thing, but they built up all those other little things, they explode for everything, not just that little thing. So that's the steadiness pattern. And finally, our C's, the conscientious. Their key desire is for order, accuracy, precision, perfection. Their motto, everything in its place and a place for everything. Their patron saint, Spock from Star Trek. Great planners, problem solvers, organizers. I'll tell you this, if you want something done right, give it to a C. But if you want it done on time, think again, because they procrastinate getting finished until it's perfect. So those are the 4 styles: the D's, the I's, the S's, the C's. All of us have a combination of all 4. I'm primarily a D, I, and much lower S, C, especially in business. Many of us have what's called our natural pattern. So my natural pattern is a DI, but my an adapted pattern can be how I change my style depending on whether it's sales or leadership or dealing with my kids or dealing with my spouse. I can actually take on different patterns of DISC depending on my experience in different situations with different people. So,
very good. So now, with the target audience of folks in sales, marketing, business development, creating business relationships, what might be the tips that you give us to understand ourselves, either where we kind of fit within this spectrum, but then B, how we can improve and how we can develop an adapted pattern, maybe where we invest into our weaknesses?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand your own pattern of behavior. I can give you a real simple, quick, and easy thing. Do you come across more guarded or open? Guarded people tend to hold in things. They do not show or share their feelings and thoughts readily or willingly. In other words, they play their cards close to the vest, harder to read. Whatever they feel or think inside tends to stay inside. Whereas the open people, you can read them like a book. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. Whatever they're feeling or thinking inside, you can see it outside. More vocal inflection, more body language. So the first decision, do you tend to come across most of the time with most people more guarded or open? And the second, are you more direct or indirect? Direct people, when it comes to risks, decisions, and change, direct people approach all three more quickly, decisively, maybe even spontaneously, whereas the indirect people, they tend to be more slower paced. When it comes to risks, decisions, or change, they approach all three more slowly, cautiously, and methodically because they don't want to be wrong. So the question is, are you more direct or indirect, more open or guarded? I can even rephrase that. Are you more interested in the relationship or the task? So that's relationship is open, task is guarded. And are you faster or slower paced, which is faster is more direct, slower is more indirect. And when you put those together, it will lead you to one of those four patterns of behavior. So people who are faster paced, but task oriented or guarded, those are the D styles, the dominant styles. If you are faster paced, but more open and relationship oriented, you're an I pattern. If you are slower paced, but more open and relationship oriented, you're the S pattern. But if you are slower paced and more task oriented or guarded, you are the C style. So the first thing is understanding what your typical pattern of behavior is, what you show naturally to other people. I mean, if you really want to get a deep dive view of your style, you'd go to my assessment site, assessments24x7.com, and take the DISC assessment, and you'll get a 30-something page in-depth report that's about 50% descriptive about you and about 50% prescriptive, how to use it with other people. So the first step, as you mentioned, Ruben, is knowing yourself. Okay, beautiful, excellent. I love how you do these fairly quickly. And then the next one is, how do you identify somebody else's style? So again, I would say, hey, when I'm dealing with this person, are they coming across more fast-paced or slower paced? Are they more task-oriented or relationship or people-oriented? And how do you do that in a sales scenario? The way you do it is when you go in to a sales scenario, especially your first call, is to ask more open-ended questions. Now, why open-ended questions? Because they allow the prospect or the customer to elaborate more. And as they are talking and answering your open-ended questions, you're making those two decisions. Is the person coming across more open or guarded, more direct or indirect? And when you can do that, you'll come across their pattern of behavior. And a simple adaptability strategy, Ruben, would be, look, if I'm asking these open-ended questions like, tell me a little bit about your business, or what are the top 3 challenges your company faces in the market today? Things like that. Tell me a little bit about your typical customer. What are they like? and you get the person to start talking, you can determine, is this person faster paced, slower paced, open or guarded? How elaborate do they get on the answers? Are they using their visual and vocal communication as they're answering the questions? And once you can get that pattern, it will tell you, do you get down to business a lot quicker? Or do you develop the relationship a little bit more in depth? Do you move faster or slower paced with that individual? And so on. So it really starts with asking good open-ended questions, and then making your subsequent questions, so question 2, 3, 4, 5, built off of the customer's responses. Mm-hmm. So for instance, I would say to you, Ruben, Ruben, you were telling me a little bit about your business. What impact does that have over the next 2 or 3 years? Or tell me a little bit about, the assessments that you've used in your business, and what has worked and what hasn't. So these are questions that allow you to elaborate, where I can observe your behavior and make those 2 key decisions. And once I can make those 2 decisions in my mind, it tells me how I adapt, how I adjust my selling style to match your buying style.
Now, one of the biggest challenges that I think about from a sales perspective is understanding what the style of our prospect is. We might know what the style of our team members are. We can ask them to take an assessment. We can deduce something. But when we're not knowledgeable about the people that are on the other side of Zoom, on the other side of the phone call, on the other side of a handshake, how can we understand and adapt so that we can serve their style better than we can serve our own?
Well, one of the things that I recommend to people is, for instance, if you are going through a secretary or assistant, maybe you can ask a couple of questions. Tell me a little bit about this individual so that I'm prepared when I go into the sales call. Or you can go online, particularly, let's say, LinkedIn or Facebook, and see if you can find that individual online and see how they respond, or what they talk about. Is it more family and friends? Is it more business and accomplishments? I can do some research in advance and get an idea about what that person's style is. But when I'm face to face with them, I can actually see and hear how they are interacting with me on that call. So that's how I would determine somebody's style. I might not always get it right, but even if I only get one of those 2 decisions right, guarded or open, direct or indirect, I can at least adjust my behavior that way to start connecting with that individual.
Well, how powerful is it then when we understand ourselves and where we fit within this profile? We can become more acute to understand where others fit on this profile. And that is just a great example of how self-awareness allows us to become more empathetic. And I think that's very powerful.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the specific protocols, some of the specific applications, some of the specific exercises that we might do as people in sales, marketing, business development? How can we improve? What are some, let's assume that we know ourselves. Let's assume that we've gone through the profile. We understand where we sit on this. Now, what are some of the exercises? You mentioned listening, which is a really good start, but what are some specific things that we might be able to do to improve?
Yeah, so I would focus on my communication skills, and 3 big communication skills. Obviously, listening is one of them, but our ability to question, our questioning skills, and our feedback skills. Feedback skills like Ruben, you mentioned that getting this issue resolved quickly is important. What do you mean by quickly? So making sure that we have a 2-way communication. I also want to get customers more involved. So, in a classic selling scenario, it's where the salesperson comes in, tries to break the ice, maybe ask some questions to find out what the customer is experiencing, particularly around the product or service that the salesperson is selling. And then they get into their solution or their presentation, or people even call it a pitch. What I suggest is in-depth information gathering to really find out what's important to the customer, what they're experiencing. I tend to look for two things, and I teach salespeople to look primarily for two things: problems that you can help them solve, or opportunities that you can help them seize. Problems that they're experiencing right now with the product or service that you are selling, maybe experiencing with a competitor, and opportunities that they don't know yet exist because of how products and services change and upgrade so much and so fast in today's environment. So looking for things that they don't know about that exist that I can help them take advantage of. So problems to solve, opportunities to seize. And once I do all that information gathering, I want to make sure that I get them involved in the, let's call it the presentation process, but let's move away from presentation. That means that I'm presenting and you're listening. Let's call it the solution process, where I would say things like, Ruben, we've talked about a lot of things about what's going on in your business. Let's look at a couple of options that we can focus on and talk about. So we start talking about options, and as we're talking about options, which are solutions, I'm asking you, how important is that to you? What else do you see that I may have overlooked? How else might you approach this situation? You see, if I present a solution to you, it's easy for you to say yes or no because it's coming from me. But if I get you involved, helping to build the solution, it's a lot harder for you to say no to something that you helped create. So those are some of the things that we teach people. And the way you go about it really it depends on somebody's style. It really does. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to give you something that I think is great. And it really, I call it the DISC communication coach. I'm going to put it in the our chat box here. You got to look at this and maybe bring it up on screen because it is fantastic. And this is a gift to our listeners here. If you really want to know how to use this, this would be what to do. So when you pull this up, Ruben, would you, so it asks you first, do you know the style of the person you're dealing with? You can do yes or no. No will ask you a couple of questions. Just click yes. Now it asks you, do you know the person's style? Just pick any one of those styles. So you're dealing with a D style. Now it asks you, do you just want to know something in general about this person? Or are you in a selling situation? Now, Ruben, you're asking me sales questions. Let's just say we're in a selling situation. Pick the phase of the sale that you're in right now with this customer. So you're exploring needs, right? So now I come up and I tell you what you should do with a D style in the exploring or information gathering phase of the sale. So this tells you everything about the style in general, whether you're selling them, whether you're managing or leading them, or whether it's just a social situation with friends. So this really shows you what to do in all different kinds of situations. And so you hear me tell you about it, but then it's written down below, and these sort of bullet points or suggestions are much more in depth than what I talk about. So I give you a lot more. Here's the beauty of this, Ruben. For some people, this may be new behavior. This may be adding on a whole new way of selling or doing things, because we're selling by style now.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable. You got to think about it. What should I do here? What should I do there? But I will tell you this. Once somebody uses this disc communication coach over a period of several weeks, all of a sudden, it starts becoming more obvious, more natural, more habitual, and it gets to a point where you don't have to go into this anymore. You just know what to do because you've been doing it and practicing it, and it becomes habitual new behavior.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is tremendous. I mean, this is like a virtual coach right here. And you have a video tutorial for every single permutation, every single stage of all of these different places within a process. This is tremendous. So thank you so much for this resource.
My pleasure, Ruben. This is for your people.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Everybody.
That makes sense. Where can we learn more about you? Where can we take the DISC assessment? And tell us about your website, your social handles.
Yeah, so I'm certainly on LinkedIn. If you just go to LinkedIn and put in Tony Alessandra, you'll find me. And if you want to take the assessment, I think I sent you a link about the retail DISC assessment. If you want to pull that up. If you just go to my assessment site, which is assessments24x7.com, and if you look here, it's /lowercase retail /uppercase disc.html. You'll come to this page, the DISC retail assessment. You can take it in a variety of languages. I think there might be as many as 20 there. And I got to tell you, the report is absolutely spectacular. If you want to see what sample reports look like, down at the bottom of yellow, look at the sample reports, the research and articles, etc. It really is incredible. And by the way, these are 2 additional free gifts for your listeners. This is a workbook that summarizes the entire DISC concept, and it's done in a way that's easy to go through. They'll love this. But if you go back, the second free item is my MP3 program. Again, this is, it's not found. Okay. I'll have to send that to you. I think it's a little different link. Let me just see if I have the link right here. I think I do.
Great. And I wanted to kind of mention some of the ways that I have personally benefited from this, by understanding my own style and understanding what my weaknesses are. I've been able to grow. It's really benefited me from a speaking perspective, from a business development perspective. There's been a lot of benefits by having this level of self-awareness, specifically centered around the DISC profile. So thank you so much. And Tony, thank you so much for offering some of these great resources. We've got the MP3s, which we can share in the notes. We have the DISC assessment, which is available for purchase. We have a sample PDF, which we will be sharing. And of course, I encourage people to go to your website, which is assessments24x7, and also to connect with you on LinkedIn. So thanks again, Dr. Tony. Really appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. And I have several links that you can use and share with your listeners.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tony. Appreciate you.